Notre Dame and Clemson have officially set the stage for one of college football's next great rivalries. Plus, the Irish keep it rolling on the recruiting trail after they landed two huge commitments over the weekend in running back Javian Osborne and linebacker Jakobe Clapper. We're covering all that and more on today's Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up? And welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum, a producer at Fox Sports, and I've been podcasting about the Irish for 5 years. I'm thrilled to have you here on Wednesday, May 7th, and thanks for making this your first watch or listen of the day. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. First off, let me just say it is great to be back. I'm back in LA after a great weekend spent in my hometown of Louisville for the Kentucky Derby. We did get rained on a little bit, but it was still a ton of fun, and I'm excited to be back here doing the pod. And to be honest with you, this comes at a good time because I need a distraction after I literally just witnessed one of the worst collapses by any team in NBA playoff history. My Cleveland Cavaliers were up 20 points in the third. They were up 7 points with less than a minute left in regulation, and somehow they still managed to find a way to lose. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. Just had to vent a little bit before we get started. We have a jam-packed episode in store because a lot happened while I was out. First up, the Fighting Irish and the Clemson Tigers are officially locking in a 12-game series starting in 2027, and I believe it is the start of one of college football's next great rivalries. Then we're going to dive into some major recruiting news as Notre Dame landed two huge commitments in the class of 2026 over the weekend. Four-star running back Javian Osborne announced his decision on Saturday, and four-star linebacker Jakobe Clapper made his commitment on Friday. I'm going to break down what these two playmakers bring to the table and how they're going to shape the future for the Irish. But we begin with the news that came out on Tuesday morning. Clemson and Notre Dame announced a 12-year scheduling agreement that will pit the two college football powers against each other annually, starting in 2027 through 2038. And I just want to say, I love this, okay? The Notre Dame-Clemson rivalry has been building for years, dating back to 2015. And now, with the 12-game home and home, I believe it solidifies this matchup in the new landscape of college football. One of the worst parts about conference realignment, at least in my opinion, is that it has destroyed a lot of great traditional rivalries, like Bedlam is dead between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State once Oklahoma moved over to the SEC. Texas versus Texas A&M was a great rivalry. Then it disappeared for a while, but then it actually came back last season after more realignment, and both those schools ended up in the SEC. Pittsburgh-Penn State was a great local rivalry that basically died. Kansas-Missouri, even though those two teams aren't necessarily powerhouses, that was a very heated matchup that died because of conference realignment. The Civil War between Oregon and Oregon State is in jeopardy. And unfortunately, the future of Notre Dame and USC is in doubt because the folks in charge at Southern Cal don't seem to really want it. But we'll save that conversation for another time. Nebraska-Oklahoma was also a great rivalry once upon a time, but that was a little bit further down the line. But we have seen some fun new matchups emerge since realignment. Like, I don't doubt that there are some new and exciting matchups like Ohio State-Oregon this past year. Like, that was fun to watch. But we haven't seen a new rivalry emerge in this new era until now, because I believe Notre Dame and Clemson is a new legitimate rivalry. Now, they've only met 8 times, and they played each other 6 times since 2015. Clemson has won 4 of the past 6, and they lead the all-time series 5-3. But it seems like the games between Notre Dame and Clemson have always been filled with high drama and significance over the years. So let's go back to that 2015, the bring your own guts game when the Irish were going up against Deshaun Watson and the Clemson Tigers, and Clemsoning was a thing. They always seem to lose these games, but they were able to hold off the Irish in their comeback effort in a hurricane. It was a thrilling game, but unfortunately, Notre Dame came up on the short end in that one. But they did not come up on the short end in 2020, at least during the regular season, because that was an unforgettable matchup. Notre Dame was ranked third. Clemson was ranked number one. They were undefeated, and Notre Dame was able to deliver Clemson their first loss of the season. Then they stormed the field after the game. The students did, despite the fact that it was a pandemic, but that is going to go down as one of the greatest Notre Dame games of my lifetime. It was certainly the biggest win of my lifetime in the moment. Now, they did play each other again in the ACC championship that the year. It did not go as well for Notre Dame, but it was the ACC championship, maybe the one and only time that Notre Dame will ever play in the ACC conference championship game. They also played in the college football playoff semifinal game back in 2018. That game was not particularly entertaining. Clemson ran Notre Dame out of the building, but they did still meet for a spot in the national championship. So these games have not only had high stakes, but they've also highlighted the competitive edge between two of college football's premier programs in this modern era. So as for the specific details of this series, it's going to be 12 games. It's going to be home-and-home arrangement, so we're not going to be dealing with these games being played in a pro stadium, at least not for now. And it's going to go from 2027 through 2038, and they were already scheduled to face 5 times in this period, but they're basically adding 7 more games to the rivalry to make it an annual thing. The Clemson games are expected to count toward the 5 games per year that Notre Dame is required to play within the ACC, which is good because that should mean it results in fewer games to the smaller programs like Wake Forest or even like North Carolina State, who's been a little bit better, but those games just don't have a ton of intrigue, right? Even the North Carolina game, they were entertaining, but doesn't have a ton of juice. So this gives the Irish more exposure against the top tier teams in the SEC, and this is definitely a response to the growing challenges posed by all the shifts going on and will continue to go on in college football, and it gives Notre Dame a way to balance out their schedule in an era where conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten are constantly adjusting their own scheduling models. So the addition of a consistent series with a top-tier team like Clemson helps Notre Dame maintain their relevance and national standing with an independent schedule. It also comes at a time when the postseason picture continues to be more complex with the expanded playoff. The Big Ten and the SEC are discussing new scheduling agreements, with the SEC potentially moving to a 9-game conference schedule. And all of this stuff is making it much harder for Notre Dame to schedule marquee matchups because they need those top-tier opponents to remain independent and stay competitive in the playoff conversation. And if teams in like the SEC and the Big Ten, they're playing non-conference games, they are less inclined to play another tough game against an opponent like Notre Dame. So it has become a problem for Notre Dame as they schedule further on down the line. And if they can't schedule these big games, they aren't able to remain an independent. So as long as these games are on the schedule and they have a path to the playoff, Notre Dame is going to be able to remain independent. So I believe this move helps secure Notre Dame's independence even more because both these teams have high expectations every single year, and the stakes are always high when they meet on the field. And on the Clemson side, I love that the AD, Graham Neff, emphasized how these games have produced some great moments and it's going to bring more drama to college football. That's all true, right? Like, I believe him. This has been a great matchup in recent years, but he's bearing the lead because the ACC's new revenue sharing model provided a push for Clemson to get this agreement done. So as part of their new deal with the ACC, Clemson and Florida State in the conference agreed that they will now take 60% of the money it makes from its TV deal with ESPN and split it between schools based on how many people watch their games over a 5-year rolling period. So what I mean is Clemson is going to earn a larger share of the media revenue because their games against Notre Dame are going to attract much more attention and higher ratings. So this deal does not force Clemson to stick with the ACC. It states that even if they were to leave the conference, this series would remain on the schedule. But now they're going to get more guaranteed eyeballs for their games than their counterparts because they're going to play Notre Dame every single year. So that is going to lead to more money in their pockets. In addition to Clemson, the Irish are also expected to play Florida State and Miami more frequently. So that is going to have significant implications as well. But they are not going to play Clemson, Florida State, and Miami in the same season. So that's good for Clemson. It's good for Notre Dame. But it does mean that Notre Dame could be playing Alabama, Clemson, Florida State, USC, and Texas all in one season in 2029. We'll see if that remains the case, and I've seen some people bring that up as a reason not to force this series because they already had games against Clemson on future schedules, but I understand that. I also think that that game against Alabama and that game against Texas might not happen because of the constantly evolving schedules in the SEC, especially if they are going to add one more conference game. And there is a risk that in a 12-game season, the more high-profile games you play, the more harm it could do for Notre Dame's chances of making the college football playoff if they're not able to win the majority of those games. And we don't really know how the college football playoff committee is going to continue to prioritize strength of schedule and things like that in the expanded model, because even though it's a 12-team playoff right now, it's likely going to expand in the near future. But I think it positions Notre Dame to continue playing at the highest level against elite competition every single year, no matter what happens with other opponents like USC and Alabama and Texas, like I mentioned earlier. And despite the unknowns surrounding the future of the college football playoff, these games are always going to provide a ton of exposure, and more likely than not, they're going to be big-time matchups down the road. We don't know what the future holds for all the other matchups, but I feel confident about this series being here to stay. And whether it's about the playoff or not, this is a win for Notre Dame football and for college football fans everywhere, because this is the start of the next great rivalry in the sport, and I can't wait to watch these two teams go at it for the next decade plus. All right, now let's shift gears here to another major development for Notre Dame, the Irish's recent haul on the recruiting trail. First, we're going to talk about Javian Osborne, the four-star running back out of Texas that picked the Irish over that team in Ann Arbor. That's next. Today's episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time, and with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. So we had kind of hinted at it on the show for a couple weeks, but now it's official. Notre Dame has secured a commitment from four-star running back Javian Osborne out of Texas, marking their first running back commit in the class of 2026, and I believe that Osborne has the potential to be the next great running back to come through South Bend and was what has become a pretty lengthy list of great running backs to wear the blue and gold, especially in over the course of the past 15 or so years. Let's dive into Osborne's background. So he is the sixth ranked running back in the class of 2026, according to the 24/7 Sports, and he is ranked number 90 overall. So you know that this is a big-time talent. He's not the biggest running back in the world. He's about 5'9", 190 to 200 pounds, give or take, and he chose Notre Dame in playing for Jawan Sider over going to Michigan and playing for Tony Alford. I find that really interesting. Okay, because at one point, Osborne was pegged to go to Texas. Makes sense, hometown school, big-time program. But then their running backs coach left for the NFL, so then he started reevaluating his options, and then everything seemed to be trending Michigan's way. But then Jawan Sider left Penn State to come over to Notre Dame. And when Notre Dame was looking to replace Dylan McCullough after he left to join the Raiders, they were basically down to two candidates, Tony Alford or Jawan Sider. They ultimately went with Jawan Sider, and then Osborne had to make a decision between Tony Alford and Jawan Sider. He ended up deciding to go with Jawan Sider, and this is a massive, massive commitment for the Irish in this class, and Sider is a big reason why. I mean, Osborne even said he developed a strong relationship with him. Sider was able to convince Osborne to get up to campus. He loved it, was able to come up a couple times, was there for the blue gold game, and that was enough to sway his commitment. Now he's a part of Notre Dame's class of 2026. He also really understands what the university is all about, both on and off the field. So this really feels like a perfect fit culturally for Notre Dame, as well as the type of player that he can be at the next level, and he could be a very good player. So he's known for his strong running style. He may not have elite speed. I think if he ran official 40 right now, he'd probably run it in like 4.5, 4.6 range, something like that. So he doesn't have quite the acceleration of a Jeremiah Love, but he has elite vision, and his ability to accelerate quickly through the holes makes him a very impressive back. He has an elite jump cut to elude tacklers in short spaces, and he excels in short yardage situations where it's like he'll get the ball and it looks like he's going to get stuffed around the line of scrimmage, and then he'll just make one shifty move, one jump cut to the outside, and he finds a hole that didn't really exist there prior to that, and then all of a sudden that 1 to 2 yard gain ends up being like a 9 or 10 yard gain. I've seen some comparisons to Tarian Folson from friends over at Irish Illustrated. I think that's an astute comparison, but I also think that might limit his ceiling because I think he has more speed. You watch his highlight tape, like he is breaking off long touchdown runs, and he plays at the 6A level in Texas, so you know he's going up against really quality competition. I think he has some Logan Diggs in him as well, in terms of his patience and his ability to find the crease in a crowd on the line of scrimmage. Now, I know Logan Diggs in his career at Notre Dame didn't turn out well, but you have to admit, he showed some flashes as a running back, and you'd find lanes where they just didn't exist, right? So it was fun to watch him do that, and I think Osborne can do a lot of the same things. He's been a 3-year starter at Forney High School, who, again, plays really high-level football in Texas, and when he was a sophomore, he rushed for over 2,200 yards on 7.7 yards per carry and had 39 touchdowns. Again, he did all that as a sophomore. He didn't put up quite as just gaudy stats as a junior. He had 1,200 rushing yards, but he still had 25 touchdowns. He just shared the ball a little bit his junior year. But over the course of 3 seasons, Osborne has rushed for 4,522 yards and 74 touchdowns. And he has 1 more year left. That's crazy. I think if you're looking at areas where he can improve, it could be a little bit more explosive, doesn't have like the natural burst that some guys do at the very top of the recruiting rankings. But like I said, he definitely has breakaway speed, and I think that he could develop into a more explosive back once he gets to college. He's in a college weight program and gets some time with Lauren Landau. We've already seen a lot of guys on Notre Dame's roster become more explosive, not just becoming faster. They have better acceleration. They are more elusive. So I think he can certainly develop that once he gets to Notre Dame. He reminds me more of Jadarian Price, who's another running back out of Texas, but I think he hits the hole harder than Price does. We know Price likes to bounce things outside, but then once he gets to the edge, he can certainly turn it loose. So that's one thing to keep an eye on with Osborne looking forward. He also has not been asked to do much in the pass game for his high school. Like, he only has 28 receptions over 3 years, so he's going to have to develop that at the next level. But it's not like he's going to be asked to come to Notre Dame and contribute immediately, although I think he could, because after the season, I fully expect Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are going to be out the door. Both of those guys are future pros. And then behind them, you're looking at Aeneas Williams, Kedron Young, maybe Jabron Payne will still be around, and then also Nolan James Jr., who's going to be a freshman this year. But I believe that Osborne could fit in and be in the mix. I don't think he's going to beat out Williams or Young in his first year, but Notre Dame has shown a willingness to run with 3 backs, and there's no reason that Osborne can't be the 3rd back as a true freshman, because I think he's that physically gifted. Now, certainly has to add some strength, right? But that's going to come in time, and I think that he's going to have a real shot to play right away. And also, you know that under Ja'Juan Seider, he's going to have a strong foundation to build his game, develop his skills in college football, because Seider has done that. He did it at Penn State with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, and the fact that he prioritized Osborne right away makes it pretty clear to me that Seider has a clear vision for what Osborne is going to do and how he's going to contribute at the next level. So you look at Notre Dame's recruiting class as a whole now. Osborne is the number 2 ranked prospect in the class overall. He's only behind Rodney Dunham, the borderline 5-star defensive end out of North Carolina, and he's the 14th commit in the class. He was the 7th since the start of April, so Notre Dame has just been on an impressive tear on the recruiting trail over the past month plus. And now, Tom Loy from 24/7 Sports also had a report out as late as Tuesday night that Notre Dame is also in the lead for another running back, 4-star Jonas Walton out of Georgia, someone that they've been after for a long time. And Walton is the 10th running back in the class and number 124 player overall. So they've already got Osborne. If they're able to get Walton to commit, that would be a banner haul at the running back position in this class after a pretty down year last year when they had two guys early. They had to move off them, and they only ended up with Nolan James Jr. So I think Javian Osborne's commitment adds a powerful, dynamic running back to a pretty stacked recruiting class. And if they're able to close on another one of the top priority targets at the position, whether that be Walton or Bonner or DeSeven Walker, this could be the best running back class that Notre Dame has had in a really long time. All right, now let's turn our attention to the other side of the ball and take a look at Jakobe Clapper, the four-star linebacker out of St. Xavier, Ohio, committed last Friday. We're going to break down what makes him such a solid addition to the linebacker core right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Nikola Jokic has been unstoppable this playoffs, and you can back him up by betting on his over in points, rebounds, or assists. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. All right, here's my pick for the night, and I'm going to be honest. After this Cavs game, it's tough for me to even think about the NBA playoffs, but I got to give out winners on the show, so I'm going to do it here. I'm taking the Celtics minus 10.5 tonight against the Knicks. I know that the Knicks had a great comeback. They were able to steal game one, but I don't think the Celtics are going to miss 45 threes in game two. So I'm taking the Celtics to win and cover. And if you're new to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you will get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Notre Dame added another key piece to its class of 2026 over the weekend with the commitment of four-star linebacker Jakobe Clapper. He is a very productive, high-motor player, and even though he's not going to generate the type of headlines of like a Javian Osborne or Rodney Dunham, these are the type of guys that are fundamental to every great recruiting class because they're in that high 3, low 4-star range that Notre Dame saw very early on when they evaluated him. They liked him a lot. They made a move on him early, and ultimately they were able to land him. Like, these are the difference makers for a really good class and a great class because they might be at the top, but they're in that middle range. And if they can develop into really great players, which I think Jakobe Clapper can do, that is going to really separate this class later on the line. So let's take a look at Clapper's background. He's 6'1", 250-pound linebacker, 215 pound linebacker out of St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati. He officially committed to Notre Dame on May 2nd. And I'm not going to lie, this kind of took me by surprise because even though he had been leaning toward Notre Dame for some time, he almost committed to Notre Dame during his junior day visit back in January. He just came off a visit to Oregon. And we all know how Oregon is. They're very good at recruiting. They're also very good at opening Phil Knight's checkbook. So if they really, really want someone, it's really not all that hard to get them. And usually when a recruit makes a commitment right after a visit, they usually commit to where they just visited. But that's not the case in this situation. Clapper visited Oregon, decided that's all he needed to see. He was comfortable to make his decision, and he's ultimately going to join Notre Dame's class of 2026. Ohio State was also in the mix. They offered him. Michigan was in the mix as well. They offered him, but he feels like a Notre Dame fit all around. And when you look at his skill set as a player, he is relentless. He plays with an extremely high motor. He's an intelligent linebacker who's able to read the game well, and he's extremely productive going up against tough competition in Ohio. I've said it before, pretty biased towards Ohio high school football on the show, given the fact that I grew up there until my family moved over to Louisville. But I remember growing up, going to Ohio high school football games. It means everything in that state, and St. Xavier has been a powerhouse for a long time. They haven't been quite as good, at least not up to their standards. They're about 19-8 in the past 2 years. Now, granted, they do play a national schedule every single year, but they're consistently one of the best high school programs in the entire country. They're going up against great teams, and Jakobe Clapper produces against those great teams. He has a great knack for reading ball carriers' angles, and he can shed blockers despite the fact that he's not the biggest guy in the world. And he's a hybrid player who can align in different spots in the field. They rush him off the edge too, so he can get after the quarterback. He's very good at blitzing, even though he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's not a type of player who just outruns all the linemen in front of him. He has a real knack and understands the technique it takes to get in the backfield. And over the course of the past 2 seasons, he recorded 195 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. I think he's a very good tackler, and he is going to be a good player at the next level. In terms of areas that he can improve upon, I think one of the main concerns with him is his size. Like, he's only listed at 215 pounds, so he's a little bit undersized for a college linebacker. That's going to develop in time. He's going to add weight once he gets to college. But I think there might be some questions about which position he's best suited to play because he's not necessarily a Mike linebacker. There are concerns about how he'd play Will, and he probably can't cover well enough to be a rover. So it's going to be kind of an interesting development plan for him once he gets on campus and they can see where he's best suited to play because he's a good athlete, but he's not like a standout athlete in terms of elite speed or elite explosiveness. And Notre Dame does like to take some risks with some of these lower priority guys. Like, they got Manfremo, they got Kingsley Biliamuasa. Those are great high school linebackers. And then they looked at other guys like Bodie Cahoon or Teddy Rizak, guys who are very athletic and very explosive. And then they just kind of figure it out how to play the linebacker position once they get to college. That's not really the case with Clapper. He knows how to play linebacker. He's really good. That's why he's been able to be so productive at such a big-time program in Ohio. So I think that he's going to be one of those guys like a Jack Kaiser or a J.D. Bertrand who develops more along the way. And he's shown an ability to be very physical. Like, he's going to deliver the blow on ball carriers, and he can be very physical. He's not like a bone crusher per se, again, because he's not the biggest guy. But I think this is a big-time commitment for Notre Dame. He joins Thomas Davis Jr. as the second linebacker commit in the class of 2026, and that has been a position of strength for Notre Dame, especially since Marcus Freeman joined the staff as a defensive coordinator back in 2021. And they've recruited a lot of really high-end linebackers. Even though Clapper doesn't fit the mold of a KVA or Manfremo, he can still be very productive down the road. And even if he doesn't develop into a full-time starting linebacker right away, this is a type of player who you're like, you see him and you're like, okay, he's going to contribute on special teams immediately. So I don't think he's going to redshirt his freshman year. I think he's going to see the field just mostly on special teams. And if he's not able to make the immediate impact, I still am confident that he has the tools to develop into a solid contributor down the road. And there's other examples beyond just Kaiser and beyond just Bertrand of guys who just kind of stuck it out and developed later on down the line. And I think the fact that he is such a strong fit at Notre Dame makes this more possible. I don't think he's going to look to leave right away because he's not seeing the field at linebacker. There are so many guys in that linebacker room that are young and are very talented. I mean, Drake Bowen is only a redshirt sophomore. Kingsley Biliamuasa is only going to be a sophomore. Manfremo is a true freshman. Bodie Cahoon is a guy that they're high on. Preston Zinter hasn't really seen the field yet. So there are more good linebackers. Anthony Saka is another guy who's going to be a true freshman who I'm excited about. So there's a bunch of talent in the room, and there's going to be attrition along the way. But I think Jakobe Clapper is a guy who's going to develop, and you're looking at him in like his third or fourth year like, wow, he might not have jumped off the page right away, but he eventually developed into a good linebacker once they kind of figure out the best position for him to play. But I think this is a significant addition to the Notre Dame defense in this class. They still have more work to do at the linebacker position, even though they have Thomas Davis Jr. and they have Jakobe Clapper. But I'm confident that this staff is going to figure out because they have been really, really good at bringing in great linebacker depth at Notre Dame. And this is just another piece to a very promising recruiting class. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. We got more recruiting coverage coming your way tomorrow. I'm going to have Eric Thomas, recruiting analyst for Irish Illustrated, back on the show. We're going to talk more about Javian Osborne and Jakobe Clapper. Plus, we're going to set the stage for what is going to be a very important couple of months for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail. Now that we're just in the heart of the offseason with spring practice behind us in fall camp, about 2.5 months away. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily updates on Notre Dame football and recruiting. And be sure to like this video below and leave us a review if you enjoyed the episode, and follow us on social media so you have all the latest news. So have a great day, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow.